trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Don't forget I got memories, dead stain the whole room if I let him bleed. Shit was dark, I let this little light him out.
And here we go. Like I said, we have Gilbert Manzano joining us tonight. Gilbert is an NFL and boxing reporter, but most importantly, for those who are into the Washington football team, he covers the Los Angeles Chargers for the Orange County Register. Gilbert, my man, I appreciate you joining us for tonight. How are you feeling? I know you said you got done a little bit early, so I know the day's going good a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit, but this time of year, man, you know, being a reporter, week one, season opener, I got a bunch of stories I'm working on, you know, feature stories, previews, predictions, you know how it is. People want content this time of year, podcast shows, so I'm a little behind Swamp. So to kind of get done a little early and maybe watch some of the rival team there in Washington on TV, it's not a bad day to end my Thursday evening.
Absolutely, it's not a bad day, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Well, first and foremost, let's get this in right quick, because Dre, you asked me this question before my mic started acting weird. Let's talk. Do we have Dallas or Tampa Bay covering the spread tonight? It's 8 points. Where we at with it? I got 8.5. I mean, I got 8. Dallas plus the 8. I got them covering tonight.
I took the money line. Tampa Bay money line. I don't like the spread. I thought it was a little too big.
You did say that before.
Dallas can make this game a sneaky. Yeah, it can make this game sneaky, but I didn't take it straight up money line. I just threw it in with a parlay. So
okay. What about you, Gil? You got a side on this one, or you just want to see a good game?
No, you know, I do want to see a good game, but man, Tampa Bay looks pretty stacked. You know, it's kind of harder running back in the NFL back-to-back years, but the Cowboys don't have Zach Martin. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'm going with the Tampa side. I know it's a big spread, man, but you're the defending champion. You're playing at home. You know, Tom Brady has not slowed down. So, and we're not sure about Dak Prescott yet. He's coming off an injury as well. Hasn't played in a long time. So I'm going with the Buccaneers right now.
Hey, look, I respect it. For what it's worth, I mean, obviously, people in the Washington football world, they want to see a Dallas blowout. Or obviously getting them seen blown out on national television always makes them happy. I'm a gambler, and you'll come to learn that about me very soon with the NFL season starting. I don't give a damn who my NFC East division rivals play. I'm in it for the money. I'm in it for the money. I'll tell you that. Unless they playing us, then we talk a little different. So before we get into this Chargers thing, man, because I understand like COVID. I ask the reporters this every time they come through. The beat reporters, I have that opportunity to do training camps and stuff, given my who I'm able to write for and stuff like that, and work for in that regard. But I'm not on a beat type of situation, but I always ask for beat reporters and things like that. You all weren't around either for 2020. Like the COVID protocols were strict, but you're back now. You're back. You're at your training camp practices. You're able to see the games. You're able to watch the daily practices, man. How did that year off kind of feel for you? But secondly, what did you miss the most? Now that you are back, what did you miss the most about being able to see the games and practices?
Man, just being around the players up close and personal and getting to know them, like you can't really ask a lot of personal questions or work on a story about just talking about them, about life, talking about away from football. You know, how's your family? How you're doing? Like the locker room was crucial for that, man. Getting to know players from a different point of view, and then when you kind of build that relationship and get to know people, you use that for a story in the future. And I'm like, hey, man, remember you told me about that charity you were doing in July? Can we go back to that? Like, you don't get those conversations during that pandemic when you don't have the locker room. And actually, we still don't even have the locker room anymore. But we're a little closer now. You know, we're a little closer, at least. Like I could see, you know, Justin Herbert's right next to me, right in front of me. Derwin James, Joey Bosa. So there's a little more of an interaction. They know my face. Mm-hmm. You know, the weird thing about Zoom though, like they kind of know your name better because your name's on the Zoom panel, so they see your name. Oh, that's Gilbert right there. But it's just kind of weird being through a laptop. So being close, you know, there's still a lot of protocols and things like that. But I think just getting back. And I get to travel again, man. I didn't get to travel last year. Like I'm excited to go to Washington and see FedEx Field and see, you know, the fans out there and the fans for WFT. So it's a lot has changed for Washington since the pandemic, a different name. So saying WFT is kind of funny right now. Yeah, whatever. I don't know what they're gonna figure out. By the way, those options are kind of, you know, they're not really it for me. but we'll see what they choose on the name. But it's been strange, man, to kind of deal with the COVID year and kind of slowly getting back to it. We're not really fully back yet, but to kind of at least be like I finally got to see Justin Herbert, in person, like up close, like a couple months ago. Like I didn't realize how big this guy was. He's like 6'6", and I talked to him throughout a whole rookie year on a computer. So to be next to players, especially the rookies, the guys I didn't get to, because I've been on this beat for 4 years now.
Uh-huh.
There's some new guys I haven't really gotten to speak to. I remember I talked to Derwin James a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, "Hey man, I missed you in the locker room. I haven't talked to you in a minute." So it was kind of good to catch up, and it's crazy because when you're talking to these players one-on-one, like the mindset just changes. Like it's kind of like a casual conversation. Like right now we're just chilling and talking. That's the players when you get them, one-on-one in person on Zoom, and you don't get the same kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, because everything is professional. I mean, obviously for obvious reasons, but at the same time, it's like they look at it as an obligation when you got to do those Zoom things or just pressers in general. But when you're talking to people that you're just working on a connection or just genuinely just having that conversation, a genuine conversation, like they're a little bit more lax, a little bit their guard is down, but they're willing to talk to people who they actually trust and people they can just speak with, and they don't have to worry about anything going out there because of something that they said. So I get it. I'm happy for you, man. I haven't known you that long, but I know a lot of people in your position to be able to cover a sport that they love and just be able to be a little bit closer after during this COVID thing. It's a good thing, man. I'm happy for you, boss.
Thank you. Appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get into the Chargers and Washington football thing, man. So I guess I'll start with a broad level analysis. When we talk about this Chargers and Washington football team matchup, in your opinion, what are some things you're thinking about on a broad scale, how Washington matches up with the Los Angeles Chargers?
Yeah, no, the first thing I look at is offensive line against the defensive line. Like we all know Washington, it's going to live off of that front four defensive line. It could be the best in the NFL. Like I'm still trying to figure out, are they as good as Tampa Bay's, front four? Because, they're the defending champion. But this team with Washington, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, all the guys up front, first-round picks, everybody's assuming they're going to be the next up-and-coming defensive line. And they have chemistry from last year. Chase Young is not a rookie anymore. He's played really well. Now, on the flip side, the Chargers, their problem has always been offensive line protection. Like Justin Herbert was running for his life last year. Which is crazy because those on the run scramble plays made him what he did. Like that made so many highlights for Justin Herbert. Like he created on the run, like he was like a wizard out there, like he was like Aaron Rodgers. But you don't want your quarterback doing these crazy plays. You want protection. So the Chargers rebuilt the offensive line. They drafted Rashawn Slater to be the left tackle. They signed Corey Lindsey to play center. So they got 4 new starters on the offensive line, but these guys are brand new. They've never played a real game together. They didn't even play in the preseason together. So, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, they're grooving that chemistry. They know how to play together, and this offensive line has never played a game together. So, what kind of test? How do you kind of figure out where you're at than facing the best front four in the NFL off the gate? So I think for the Chargers, if they could, withstand that pressure, they should be okay. But I'm concerned because it's the first game. There's been some injuries. Rashawn Slater's a rookie. I know he has history with Chase Young, and he's kind of done well in college, but this is brand new for everybody. So I think for the Chargers offensive line, it could be a problem for them.
So Dre, we kind of talked about this. It's ironic because of the injuries that happened today with Baltimore and the running back, but we kind of talked about this when we spoke on preference. And preference being that, your starters or your key starters should or shouldn't play in preseason. I was on the side of that. I don't know. I actually don't even know what your side was, Dre, when these conversations took place. But I was on the side of your players are going to get hurt regardless if you practice or if you play if in preseason, things like that. So it doesn't matter what the coaches decide. But if they want to get these starters some work, to the point that you're making, Gilbert, that they weren't necessarily the offensive line. They weren't necessarily all cohesive in the sense that they're just brand new as a unit. They're still learning together. They're still playing together. They have to understand each other. My question, because I asked you a couple weeks ago, my question is like, do you kind of feel that was the right move for the coach to and I know your answer, but I want you to let the people know, like, do you feel it was the right move for the coach to kind of sit these key starters out for the entire preseason and not let them see it snap?
That was for me or Gil?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what's crazy? I thought my mic went out again. I was asking Gil, but I do want to get your.
My bad. I think something about Dre.
So no, I did mention Dre. I wanted to get his opinion, but I was more so asking you first about your opinion on this starters not playing in the preseason thing.
You know what? I'll lean into the side of not playing the starters. I get it. You could get hurt in practices. It happens to the Chargers all the time. Injuries are happening. Like right now with Baltimore, it's crazy to see so many injuries happening to them right now. So you can't really prevent them. But why not kind of increase your odds in favor of you of not having injuries? And let's be real. Like the preseason are for guys who are fighting for roster spots, guys who are brand new, want to get a feel for it. Guys maybe who are coming back from injury who want to get some rust off. So it's kind of a situational thing. So I think with Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, he came from the Sean McVay kind of routine with the Rams, where they kind of started this trend of not playing anybody. Anybody who's a starter, anybody who's good on the Rams was not going to play in the preseason. So Brandon Staley kind of took that and he realized, okay, it's not really a thing for Justin Herbert. This is not really for Derwin James. Like Derwin James hasn't played a game in almost 2 years, but he sees it every day in practice. Like, this guy's still really good. This guy's an all-pro talent. Why am I going to put him out there in a preseason game? So I think for the Chargers kind of point of view, especially at this team that's been kind of decimated with injuries the last couple of years, like there's like the people are thinking they're cursed out here. So why risk it in the preseason by playing these guys against second stringers and third stringers? So I think for Brandon Staley, I think it was the right call.
Okay. And Dre, like I said, I did mention you. I did want to get your opinion because we were on the subject. Where were you at? Well, first off, I would just ask you, like, how do you feel about the Chargers? Like, what side were you on with this starters not playing type?
Well, for me, I felt like they probably should have got maybe a series or two of working preseason. They don't need to play all of the games, and the only reason I say that is because if you look back at last year, when no one had preseason, everything that in any struggles that happened to everyone, it was blamed on there was no preseason. So, I mean, do you want the guys to play or do you not? So, I mean, I think it wouldn't have hurt to put them out there maybe for like just even the last game or the second game, just for a half, just to get the blood pressure running and all. But hey, I mean, it could turn out to work in their favor. We'll see. I mean, no one knows until week one. That's when we start blaming, or we'll call them a genius or whatever.
Yes. Absolutely. So, Gil, do you expect any rest, like at least within the first couple of weeks, or is this something that? Because I do know, I think y'all took some scrimmages throughout the training camps as well. So I'm not sure. I'm sure y'all seen plenty of repetitions the players have. Do you expect any type of rest, or is this something that they've been worked out already?
Yeah, I am kind of expecting some rest for this team not having a preseason, but. Like you mentioned, they had a couple of scrimmages against the San Francisco 49ers, and they went at it pretty hard there. A lot of the starters were there. I know there was no Nick Bosa there for the 49ers, but they have a pretty stacked front seven that's pretty deep, that gave the Chargers a lot of experience, and they gave them fit. So maybe they'll be ready for this Washington front seven as well. But you kind of expect that all, even if there was preseason games. I feel like week one is always kind of get the rust out. Like there's no more vanilla plays. There's no more like, let's just play for fun kind of thing. This is a real deal. There's pressure. These games matter. So I think there will be some rust, and I think both of these teams have good defenses. Like the Washington and the Chargers have great defense. So it could be low scoring regardless. So it could be a long day for both offenses, regardless if they play in the preseason or not.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into some specifics here. You mentioned offensive line already, Gil. And we know for a couple of years that has been their Achilles heel on the offensive side of the football. They've invested into that position, obviously, to keep Justin Herbert upright. In your opinion, you mentioned the cohesive part, or kind of like they're trying to get there, but how much better do you expect them to be at least this year? Because you seen what they did in preseason training camp, but how much better just overall as the year goes along do you expect them to be this year?
Yeah, a year ago, a lot of people pointed the finger at the coaching staff, Anthony Lynn, and there is some blame there because they lost a lot of close games. I think they lost 7 of their first 9 games. They lost games by one possession. They're always in these one-score games, or they're missing a field goal, or they're giving up a big third down in 2-minute drill. So when it comes to close games, this team has been one of the worst teams. I mean, worse in the NFL when it comes to situational football in the fourth quarter when the game's on the line. The last 2 years, they've probably been the worst. I probably don't even need stats to kind of figure out how bad they've been. But they let go the head coach. And it could be a debate there because Anthony Lynn did a great job with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert had probably the best rookie year of all time for a quarterback. So it's kind of weird that he got let go for that. But you really think about it, it was kind of a predictable offense. He was running the ball a lot. And as we know in today's NFL, you want to pass that ball pretty often. And when you have a guy like Justin Herbert who has a strong arm, very smart, can read defenses, you want to push that thing down the field. Now the question mark with Brandon Staley is, he's very creative, very innovative. He had a great year with the Rams. Like he turned that unit into the top defensive unit. Yeah, he had Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, but everything he's done, he's very creative, innovative, ahead of the trend. And I think that's where the Chargers hired him. But the thing about that is that he's never been a head coach of the NFL. We've never seen this guy lead an entire franchise, special teams, defense, and offense. So I can't really tell, but just being around the guy, he's very smart. Like I feel like anytime he enters a room, he probably knows the most football from anybody, because this guy is just, he's a walking encyclopedia when it comes to football. They last like 30 minutes, man. We can't get Brandon Staley off the podium because he's dropping knowledge. He's not afraid to share some schemes and X and O's, and I'm learning something every day. I'm going back to my recorder like, oh, I missed that. Wow, that's pretty good, because it's hard to keep my attention span for 30 minutes every time he's talking. So you would think coaching, they'll be better. And then Justin Herbert, year 2. I know people say that when you change the coaching staff and you're a young quarterback, you take a step back. But this guy, Justin Herbert, man, like we saw at Oregon, he was a 4.0 GPA student. And what he did last year as a backup quarterback without any starter reps in a pandemic, in a short offseason, to take the Chiefs to overtime and with 1 minute notice, and then kind of, keep that up for the rest of the year. He didn't have really much of an offseason to learn the scheme. So, and he had three head coaches at Oregon to learn how to, do well in a new scheme. So I think when it comes to new schemes and new coaches that Justin Herbert has shown time and time again that he's able to adjust. So I think overall, from looking at the coaching staff and Herbert, I think the team should be better. But that's we got to play the games though. But I really think that, at least for now, they look better than they did a year ago.
On the Justin Herbert topic, you shared a lot just now. Now, obviously, I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert, but we know how good he can be. I felt like he was a top 10 quarterback last year, production wise. I would ask you, at least for week 1 here, what do you think some challenges that's going to be in the face of Justin Herbert? What are some challenges that you think he'll be coming across as he faces up against the Washington football team?
Yeah, I'll go back to the new scheme. I know he's very smart and he could catch on very quickly, but it's going to be a pretty complicated scheme with different personnel groupings. He's going to have 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, empty sets, multiple running backs. Anything you can think of for type of grouping, he's going to throw. They're going to ask him to put it out there and do it at a fast pace. If you look at the clock on Sunday, they're going to be running these plays pretty quick. It won't be a no huddle situation because they want you to kind of figure out who's going to be on the field at the same time. So if Herbert's struggling to kind of figure out where people are supposed to be lined up, which personnel is going to be going, and how fast the tempo is going to be, that could be an issue on Sunday. Maybe he'll figure it out by week 2, but that first game, that tempo is going to be a problem for Herbert. And on the flip side, from a year ago that he kind of struggled with was defenses that disguise the coverages pretty well. They make you guess, this is a blitz or are they going to stay back and defend? And Herbert struggled against the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Bills, teams in the AFC East for some reason had his numbers. So if Washington's looking at that tape from a year ago, I know Washington's kind of struggling in the secondary, but if they're bringing pressure and they're disguising it pretty well, that could be a problem as well for Justin Herbert.
Okay. So one of the things on this offensive side about it we'll close out with is X factors. You mentioned the offensive line. Obviously, that's probably the biggest thing that stands out to you is obviously the offensive line versus defensive line in Washington. But when you look at other X factors or possible X factors that'll be on the offensive side for the Chargers, at least in skill positions, who are some of those names, if not or multiple names if there are. Who are some of those names that Washington fans need to look out for when Sunday comes around?
Well, the biggest thing, if Austin Eckler can't play on Sunday, that's going to be a big problem for the Chargers. He's missed practice the last 2 days, but what I'm hearing is precautionary that he should be okay. He had his helmet on today and his pads, but they didn't let him practice. So I think Eckler feels fine to go out there and practice, but the coaches have to say, no, hold on, let's just kind of do it till Sunday. So if he's not playing or he's not 100%, then you might want to consider, in terms of fantasy purposes, Justin Jackson is backup. But I don't feel too confident about Justin Jackson because he's been known for injury problems as well. When he's not injured, he's a pretty good playmaker. He's kind of similar to Austin Eckler, not as dynamic, not as explosive, but he is a dual threat who could give you yards in the passing game and run between the tackles. In terms of other kind of unknown players, obviously Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are going to have monster days. They're going to be a problem. But again, going back to this kind of new scheme for the Chargers and Herbert, they're going to be spreading the ball around, different formations. So I think that the tight ends will be heavily involved. I know Jared Cook's a little older now, but he looked pretty productive in practice.
16 yards a catch over the last 2 seasons with New Orleans, man. So he's on it.
He's still a playmaker. So like you said, he extends plays and he's a red zone target. They have guys like Donald Parham Jr., 6'8" tight end. So they have a lot of weapons on this team. But a lot of the weapons are young, they're inexperienced, and this coaching staff is really relying on these weapons to step up because, like I said, they're gonna throw a lot at opposing defenses. So if guys like Parham and Justin Jackson and Larry Roundtree are being productive, it could be a good start for Justin Herbert.
Absolutely. Now, tell us this Derwin James journey to this point. You wrote a story a couple of days ago detailing his comeback journey after missing most of the last 2 years. He's back, and at least for week 1, we as Washington football fans can expect him to be all over the field Sunday. I'm going to give the floor to you. What's going on with Derwin James, and what type of impact can he bring to this defense?
Yeah, no, by the way, I'm sure Derwin's really excited to play in Washington because his favorite player growing up is Sean Taylor. That's the guy he idolized, and that's who he kind of patterned his game to. So I'm sure Derwin wants to have a big game, and not just because of that. He hasn't played in over a year. He had a torn meniscus in his knee, had his entire 2020 year wiped out. But I think for Derwin James, you should expect the same one from 2018. I know it's been 2 years since he's been an All-Pro at 2 positions. It's crazy to think that his rookie year, he was an All-Pro at defensive back and safety, and he still didn't win the Rookie of the Year on defense. It was wild to me that he missed out. But I think that at Derwin James, you should see that one, the same one, or even better for his 4th year. I know coming back from 2 major injuries could be a problem, but I've been watching this guy in practice for the last month, and he looks better than ever. He's playing safety, linebacker, cornerback, edge rusher. He's calling the defense now. Like, this guy is doing so much for the Chargers, and it kind of shows you how valuable he was because the last 2 years he hasn't played, and they've been pretty bad. Like, I'm gonna keep it real. This defense hasn't been that good the last 2 years. So when Derwin James is on the field, they had Joey Bosa out there, but Joey Bosa needs Derwin James, and he'll tell you straight out, like, this team needs Derwin James. So I'm excited to watch him play against Fitzpatrick and Antonio Gibson and Logan Thomas and McLaurin because Derwin does it all. So he's gonna be all over these matchups. So I think it's a really, really good test for Derwin for his comeback game.
Hey, Gil, so I have a question. With Brandon Staley, he's a guy coming off the Vic Fangio coaching tree. He was with the Rams last year, I believe, with the #1 defense. And what do you all kind of expect him to do with the Chargers defense, who was ranked 10th last year in the league? And who are some of the guys you probably expect to see have a different or bigger impact with a guy like Brandon Staley on that side of the ball?
Yeah, with Brandon Staley, him being a head coach was kind of a surprise to a lot of people. Like, he's only 38 years old. He was only the defensive coordinator for the Rams, like you mentioned, for 1 year, but he made them the top-ranked defense in the NFL in 1 year. And this guy 4 years ago was coaching at Division II program, so he had a crazy rise to be a head coach. But the reason why he's so successful everywhere he goes, his track record says that if you're a defender with any type of I guess potential or talent, he's gonna untap that and find that and bring out the best in you. Like, a lot of players in the Rams, like, it wasn't just Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. A lot of these players who were kind of fringe players who have talent but couldn't really maximize it. When Brandon Staley came around, he got career years out of those guys. Now you look at the Chargers roster, the GM Tom Telesco has been around for 8 or 9 years, and he spent a lot of first round, second round capital on defense. Derwin James, Kenneth Murray. I could go on and on for how much capital he spent on defense, but a lot of these guys, besides the big names, have not, found that potential, or at least kind of, had put it together on the field. And that's why they hired Brandon Staley, because he's a good teacher, good motivator, and he's good as a defensive, head coach. He's like a mastermind out there in terms of defense. So I think that's why they brought in Brandon Staley, to untap Justin Jones, Jerry Tillery, Nazir Adderley, Drew Tranquil, Kaiser White. So, I think the GM is banking on Staley to kind of help him out. I'm like, hey, I got the draft picks. They haven't been working out. What can you do, Brandon Staley? So in terms of scheme and X's and O's, it should be similar to Vic Fangio and what he did. Staley with Rand, a lot of disguises, different formations, position his players, aggressive, rushing 5, rushing 6. But also I've seen him, be kind of old school. He has 3 linebackers on the field, so you can't really tell what he's going to play. And that's what made him so good a year ago. And on top of all the teaching to kind of help the younger guys.
So one of the things that kind of stood out to me on the defensive side of the ball, at least when I was looking up about Staley, was just you actually mentioned it, the way he utilizes his defense, and like what's the safety position is kind of weird, not in a negative way, but weird in the sense that he uses these guys in 2 high looks, two high safety looks, but also their free order strong is used as that extra man in the box. And it's very creative, because at times it's either the free safety or strong safety getting free, or it's that linebacker that's getting free off to the talent of the defensive line. My question is more so pointed towards that defensive line in that front 7. How strong is this unit outside of Joey Bosa, or is this something where they're still developing? It's something that may take a little bit more time, but they have things going in the right direction. Like, what is your opinion on that front 7?
Yeah, no, defensively, I think maybe my biggest concern is on the defensive line. Like, I like the linebackers, like Kenneth Murray, Drew Tranquil, and Kaiser White should be pretty solid. But outside of Joey Bosa on the D line, like, they lost Melvin Ingram, who's now with the Steelers. Like there's a lot of inexperienced guys, a lot of inconsistent players. Like the number 2 guy who was supposed to fill in for Melvin Ingram was Chandler Nwosu, who was a 2nd-round pick out of USC in 2018. But he's been very inconsistent. And then he shows up to training camp with a new coaching staff who didn't, draft him. Like, he wasn't really impressive off the bat. So they made it like open competition with Kyler Fackrell, who was kind of a special teams guy for the Giants. So can you really expect this guy to be your number 2? So Fackrell and Chandler Nwosu were kind of fighting for number 2. So I'm worried about that. And then on top of it, they only have a 4th edge rusher because they only brought 4 for the 53-man roster. But that could mean that they're kind of high on their rookie, Chris Rump II, who came out of Duke. He's a 4th-round pick, but Joey Bosa is raving about him. So maybe he could do something and kind of surprise and maybe prove me wrong about the depth of the defensive line, because right now I don't see too many guys that could be productive next to Joey Bosa. But who knows? I could be wrong. But I do like the interior of the defense. Linval Joseph. Maybe this could be the year Justin Jones and Jerry Tillery put it together. They kind of been a little inconsistent as well. But Linval, he's like a 12-year veteran. He didn't have any signs of decline a year ago. He's still a beast out there clogging up the lane. So in terms of this defensive line, they need to be on point, because Staley's going to be doing a lot of different things and bringing in Kenneth Murray to help out in the pass rush, Derwin James as well. Like you mentioned, it's going to be a lot of safeties coming down or moving back to the top. So I think it's going to be very confusing defensive scheme, and that only helps you if you're bringing pressure consistently with your front 4.
Absolutely. Same thing that I asked for the offensive side. X factors. It can be also Derwin James again that you mentioned, but X factor or X factors on the defensive side of the football that Washington fans need to look out for.
I'll go with with Kenneth Murray. Like when you talk about this Chargers defense, you think about Joey Bosa and Derwin James right off the bat. But I think Kenneth Murray could be soon joining them in that conversation and that kind of gives you 3 standout playmakers at all phases of the defense. You got Joey Bosa on the defensive line, Kenneth Murray in linebacker, Derwin James in secondary. So I think Kenneth Murray, struggled a year ago as a rookie because Gus Bradley really focused on developing him as a coverage guy. Gus Bradley is now with the Raiders. But I could tell Kenneth Murray was kind of frustrated because he's a physical downhill linebacker, and he's going to go back to doing that now with Brandon Staley. He's going to utilize that, that physical side of rushing the passer, going after the running back. So I think Antonio Gibson and Kenneth Murray could meet plenty of times. But man, I'll give you one more because I don't know how he's going to perform. But Asante Samuel Jr., the rookie cornerback for the Chargers, he's going to be asked to play a lot. He's going to be the second outside cornerback when they go into dime or nickel packages.
The starter corner, right?
Yeah, he's a starter, number 2 outside, and that's going to be asking a lot for him to kind of go against these wide receivers. I know Curtis Samuel is banged up for Washington, but they still have a lot of playmakers, and Fitzpatrick likes to go deep, so it could be an up and down day for Asante. But if he's on point, he's a playmaker and he has a nose for the football. So I'm kind of curious to see how he does on defense as well.
All right. So one more thing about the game, or 2 more things, but 2 quick things. Key injuries. I know you mentioned Eckler. Is there anybody else with San Diego, Los Angeles that we need to think about in terms of key injuries?
Nothing crazy, but I'll throw out Brian Bulaga. He is on the injury report. He's been practicing the last 2 days, but man, he's been in and out of practice and training camp at least with a hip injury. And he's kind of slow out there. I feel like he's not fully 100%. So if you lose Brian Bulaga, your right tackle, because Brian Bulaga has this kind of track record of making it to the games on Sundays, but he leaves early. Like he's like, okay, my backs gave out, or I can't do it today. So he gives you half the game.
Time out, coach. I catch you later. You know what I'm saying? I did what
exactly.
I could.
I tried. I was out there, but then that puts you in a tough spot because the backups have been struggling. Storm Norton, Trey Pipkins. So imagine if Bilal can't play. Like he's like, okay, I gave you 10 snaps. I'm out of here now. Now you get the backups going against Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and that could be a long day for the Chargers. So if Bulaga is not right, then it could be a long day for them. But so far, so good being a full participant at practice.
Okay. Prediction. It is Thursday, the day we're recording this, or the night we're recording this. So I don't want to tie you down to this, but you kind of got to give a prediction before you get off. Who wins and why?
Man, like I feel like I'm gonna change my mind often.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's why I gave you the little leeway, but you gotta say something right now.
I'll stick with it because I think it's like you see on the betting line, it's like a 1-point game. I'm kind of surprised the Chargers are actually getting that point. Like you're a road team going over there for week 1. I thought they'd be underdogs, but if Austin Eckler, I shouldn't say if, I'm gonna just do it. Austin Eckler, I think it's gonna play out there. It's precautionary. He's a big part of this offense. You need Austin Eckler. So I gotta stop saying if. He's going to be out there. I won't backtrack. Austin Eckler out there healthy. I think Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley kind of go in there and surprise Washington. And I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I'll say 20-17 in favor of Herbert and the Chargers to beat Washington. Hopefully your listeners don't hate me for that prediction. But we'll see what happens.
Well, luckily, you know what I'm saying, we got the rational one, so we understand the game on a broader scale. And I'm not saying I think that the Chargers are going to win, but they understand why you think the Chargers are going to win. It makes sense.
Okay.
Absolutely. So Gilbert, man, I appreciate you for joining us, man. You've been great, and the breakdown has been excellent just to help us out and understanding what we got going on against the Los Angeles Chargers this upcoming Sunday. Before we go, though, I want to give this opportunity to allow you to plug each and everything you got going on, where the people can find you, where the people can hear you, and where they can read your work.
Yeah, man. So I got a bunch of stories like I mentioned this week. You gave a shout out to my Derwin James piece. Thank you for that. So you guys could read that, the Orange County Register or the Los Angeles Daily News website, or just go to my Twitter at GMonzano24. I got a bunch of season previews for the Chargers, so you can kind of get to know the opponent. I had a prediction story game by game. I had the Chargers being 10-7. Somehow that pissed off a lot of people on Twitter. It's 10 games. Come on, guys. I gave you guys victories there. And then I have a big Justin Herbert kind of feature coming out this weekend. Kind of like, like I was mentioning, how can he, grasp this new offensive scheme and grasp it quick at a fast pace without any regression to kind of set that, set that tone and match what he did a year ago. So I talked to Justin Herbert's roommates for an inside look at how he studies and processes film. So that comes out on the weekend. Like I mentioned, OC Register, LA Daily News. Follow me on Twitter at GMonzano24.
All right, copy that. And when that does come out, just DM me the tweet. I'll share it on my side too. So
I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. So Gilbert, man, get ready for this game. I appreciate you for joining us, man, and enjoy the rest of your night.
No, definitely. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. That was fun and talk some football with you guys, and best of luck throughout the season doing this podcast.
Absolutely, boss man. Take care.
Absolutely.
Here we go. All right. So Drake, that was, for ladies and gentlemen, that was Gilbert Manzano. Good guy. Really, really smooth, man. He broke everything down for us. Everything that you needed to know about the Los Angeles Chargers heading to this game. And Drake, on our side, we're getting ready for a game too. Thursday night. Everybody's getting ready for a game. I don't want to make it sound like we rushing, but it worked out that Gilbert got on a little bit earlier. I'll just say that. Let's go ahead and close this thing out, man. On our side, let's do like two matchups that we're going to be paying attention to on our side, and then let's give a score prediction.
Two matchups personally. First one for me is definitely going to be Chase Young versus Slater, the young rookie offensive tackle for the Chargers, because listening to Chase Young today in his press conference, he sounds like he's taking his game to another level. I mean, he's talking about the counter moves he's learned. He's also talking about how he's going to be able to get off his breaks pretty quickly because of schemes. He knows formations now. He understands that. I mean, it's that's why they say football is a game where it's like 80% mental, because, you know, yeah, you can be physically talented, but once you really study the mental and get that down, you take your game to a next level. Even Jack Del Rio mentioned that Chase looks like a completely different player this year. He was like, you know, he was super talented last year, but now he's added some things to his game that's going to take him to the next level. This is what it gets me excited talking about it, but this is what people talked about with Chase Young as the generational talent, so to speak, because this is what generational talents do. Generational talents get better each year. I mean, I don't even think Chase Young is in his prime yet. So we got a few more years of that. So I'm really looking forward to just watching him in year two. And it starts with a big matchup with the rookie Slater. So the other matchup I'm looking for is on the offensive side of the ball. It's going to be Fitzpatrick versus the Chargers pass defenses. Obviously, you know, Derwin James is the man, and healthy Derwin James can disrupt the passing game plan. So I want to see Fitzpatrick kind of, you know, how he's going to react to the defense, because this is going to show kind of what the schedule we're playing. It's going to kind of give you a telltale of how the season is going to kind of go for Fitzpatrick, in my opinion. So that's the second matchup I'm looking forward to.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and piggyback on because Fitzpatrick was one of mine, so I'll just make that one quick. That was one of mine. So I think Fitzpatrick versus defensive coordinator Ronaldo Hill, and obviously Brandon Staley, of course. Fitzpatrick is going to be seeing a lot of different personnel groupings, disguises, blitzes, things of that nature. And he's a veteran. He's seen them before. But at the same time, when you're going against a defense as good as the Chargers, who was good before Staley got there, but now they're getting him on top of getting some of the players that they had that they lost to the season back, in terms of Derwin James specifically, and then adding Asante Samuel Jr., you're adding a little bit more versatility to that secondary. And the secondary I already thought was the strong suit of that group. Like you always, like when I told you all a couple of days ago, Dre, in that chat, that secondary strap, like it is what it is. Like and you're adding pieces, so we're gonna see Fitzmagic or Fitztragic pretty soon. Like I think it's gonna be week one. We'll know which one we'll see pretty soon. And he just has to be able to showcase that experience, but also obviously be selective and patient in terms of what he sees on the defensive side of the field, whether it's pre-snap or understanding who he wants to go with the football. Like everything isn't going to be got in one play, especially against this secondary, man. Right. So that's going to be the first. That's the first matchup that I'm actually paying attention to, is how Fitzpatrick handles the looks and coverages and disguises of Staley and Hill. The second one is going to be Leno Jr. and Samuel Cosme versus Derwin James and Nasir Adderley. These are the two safeties for the Los Angeles Chargers. And the reason why I brought that up, and I also mentioned it in the questioning, it was just part of some preparation work. Excuse me. It was part of some preparation work that I had leading into this interview with Gil. And I understand like how essential the safeties are just to how Staley loves to use his run fits. And the key for Washington, a team that was 28th in the NFL last year in yards per attempt and 26 in the NFL in rushing yards a game. You have to establish the ground game against this Chargers defense. And the way that he uses his safeties, Dre, in a sense of where if you're in a nickel base, he'll bring a safety down at the last second to make it look like a 4-3 fit. Or he'll use his safeties to make it look like a 3-4 fit. Anyway, like he'll use that safety as that extra man in the box. And that's something that Washington is obviously preparing for. They're not stupid. They're doing that on their end. But the tackles, and not just the tackles, we're talking about the slot receivers who's going to be lined up at the wide, or even inline tight ends. Like, all of these guys have to account for these safeties at some point in time. But that's why the offense, the tackles is something that sticks out to me. Everybody's going to have their share of accounting for these safeties who's going to be coming into the box, and accounting for that free man. You don't want that free man to come in and disrupt this passing game, or this run game. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of my matchups, is understanding where Derwin James and Nasir Adderley is at all times. Two really good young safeties for the Los Angeles Chargers. Okay, let's close it out with game picks, game picks and the MVP. I'll go ahead and get this thing started. Now, I mentioned to you that Washington, it was either going to be a low scoring game or a high scoring game. It wasn't going to be like a NFL average, which the NFL average has been around like 21, 22 points per game over the last couple of years. I think it's either going to be like Gilbert said, either you're talking about 2017 or you're talking about 17-14, or I think it's going to be high scoring 31-27. And if we're on the high scoring end of this thing, I think we're losing. I think if we're on the low score, the low end of this game, I think we're winning. And because I feel like this West Coast thing is a legitimate issue for West Coast teams, I'm gonna go ahead and give Washington football team a victory against the Los Angeles Chargers, man. I'm gonna say 20-17. Washington football gets the dub against the Los Angeles Chargers, and the MVP would be Chase Young.
What was your MVP?
Chase Young. Chase Young is gonna be the MVP.
Okay. All right. So for me, score predictions are really hard, but I do think the West Coast thing is a big deal. You know, a lot of West Coast teams struggle when they have to play the 1:00 game. So I think that is going to be a factor. Now, to your point about, you know, it being low scoring being in our favor, I do agree. But however, if it were a high scoring game and we were to win, then I would be off the rails optimistic about this offense. I'm like, oh shit, we can actually win a shootout with this offense, like, because that's something I wouldn't have been able to say last year. So, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go with I'm taking us to win. I just think we'll come out really pumped on defense. That's what it's gonna boil down to. I think I like our defense better than I like the Chargers defense. I think the rush is gonna be with the guys like Herbert and all. So I'm going to take us, and I'm going to say 24-16.
24-16. Okay, I love it. All right. So
3 field goals by the Chargers.
Okay, so, and obviously Washington covers, and that's the most important thing. Before we get out of here, stay tuned for the Ante Up Consulting official pick for the Chargers and Washington football team. Week 1 game. Ante Up Consulting has been on the Trap or Die podcast. They are real life friends of mine. They are gambling experts for those who are not familiar with gambling or even want to understand what gambling is. Or if you are somebody who loves gambling and you want some analysis, follow Ante Up Consulting on Twitter. You can also follow their podcast, What's the Line? All these things, they have a pick for you coming up, and I will play it as soon as we end this, but also on the podcast. It'll be streamlined, so you'll hear it like in right now.
This week's Washington football team odds are presented by Ante Up Consulting, where we have the best odds and wager plays in the DMV. This week, the LA Chargers are at the Washington football team. The Chargers are favored by 1. The total is 44.5. We're going to back the Washington football team here with a great defense, a much improved offense, and the LA Chargers, who are still young, second-year quarterback, new offense, new head coach. And this is a team that did not learn how to close out games last year in the Chargers. So we're going to back a Washington football team. As far as props, I like Ryan Fitzpatrick over 23.5 touchdowns for the 2021 season. I just think in a 17-game season, Scott Turner offense, he's going to throw the ball much more. So those are your weekly Washington football team odds and player props, once again presented by Ante-Up Consulting.
Dre, I appreciate you. Are you got any games that you already locked in, or you're gonna take some things when the weekend comes around in terms of NFL games?
Yeah, actually, yeah. No, so for me, first things first, it's going to be college football's priority first. So I'm gonna see what happens this weekend. I had a really good start to the college football season, then a rough Saturday. So it starts back again tomorrow. So, but I mean, obviously, I already told you I got something on tonight, with the parlay of the Buccaneers and the Braves. But Friday night, so I'm gonna try to get my bankroll up Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. That's when I'm gonna really start looking into these NFL games. I'm gonna get my plays in around 11 o'clock.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you need some help or you want some advising, I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm an expert. We can just consult with each other.
Sound like you got some winning picks for me.
No. I had a hot streak back in October last year, and everything went to shit afterwards. I'm just here to advise, or give my opinion. But we'll talk for sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Let's go ahead, watch this game. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy ourselves for the rest of the night. T,
go Bucks.
Money line. You know what I'm saying? Cool with that. You know what I'm saying? Let's go plus
money
8
Dallas.
Yeah. We could both win here, Dre. We could both win here.
Yeah, right. I don't care how much they beat them, but just beat them.
Just beat them. All right. So with that being said, I will be back. I think, yeah, Dre, if you want to tune in, obviously we'll talk. But I'll be back for the pregame on Sunday and postgame Sunday. So I will see you all in a couple days. Until next time, y'all. Peace.
Whole hard in the trenches, ask a nigga what he benching, triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches.